What we have here is a goodie for 3D printing. So if you have a 3D printer, you probably know what this is. This is a filament dryer. So filaments use thermoplastics. Those plastics can be hygroscopic. What that means, the plastics can absorb moisture from the air, especially some of the higher temperature stuffs like nylon, polycarbonate, ABS can absorb moisture. When a filament absorbs moisture, well, it does different things to different filaments. Even PLA can absorb moisture. When it does, it becomes brittle. So you have a roll that keeps cracking, it's absorbed a little moisture. It's rare, but it happens. Usually it happens to the end of the filament that's already gone through the feeder unit. So the teeth on your feeder gear drive have cut little cracks in the filament, which allows water ingress. Solution to that is just break off that last 12 inches of filament and then feed the filament in. You should be okay. You can put it in here to dry it. So the way this works is it's a sealed, well, relatively sealed environment, and you have a heater inside. But you can't just put it in a dry environment. A dry environment, such as silica packets, will keep a dry filament dry, but it won't actually dry a wet filament. You have to drive the moisture out of the plastic, which means you have to apply energy, in this case in the form of heat. You apply heat and you drive the moisture out of the plastic. But you gotta be careful. You apply too much heat and you reach glass deformation temperature and your roll will begin to warp. Not the roll, with the filament on it. And when that happens, you might push that filament out of shape enough that you can no longer feed it into your printer. So do be careful. You're not going to have to worry about that with this, though. It does not get hot enough. We also use food dehydrators to do this. The advantage of a machine like this is you can set it, tell it how long, and it has outputs where you can feed the filament directly out of this. So you could put a PTFE tube in here and run that to your printer so that your filament is in a relatively sealed environment from start to nozzle. Because filaments, for example, like nylon, can actually absorb moisture fast enough that they can become wet while they're sitting on your printer printing in a few hours. So you want to feed filament like that from a unit like this so that it is dry from here all the way to the print head, so it has no chance to absorb moisture, or very little chance. The way this works, your filament roll sits inside, it's on a roller, and inside is a heating element. That heating element gets hot. It can reach up to, I think I saw as high as 71, although this has a max of 56, I think. Something like that, 55, 56 Celsius. It never reaches that, however. While this bottom gets hot enough, when you try to heat something up, applying energy heated up assumes a perfect transfer. The problem is it's imperfect. There are losses. This box is continuously radiating heat to the environment around it. So you have to not only apply enough energy to get your temperature to the desired target, but you have to have enough excess energy to exceed the rate at which this bleeds heat to the atmosphere. That's why we put insulation in our houses. If you don't insulate, your electric bill or your gas bill is going to be very, very high, or worse, you actually won't have enough BTUs to both heat the house and beat the rate at which your house bleeds heat to the outside. This is why your parents yelled at you to close the damn door. Because all the heat was going right outside. Faster than the heater can replace it. This is a little underpowered. It needs more juice. It doesn't have enough oomph to actually get this environment to the right temperature. While I used my barbecue thermometer, I had one in the center and I had one in the bottom. And while the one at the bottom would reach the target temperature, up here would never reach the target temperature. The highest temperature I was able to achieve in this was 38 Celsius. That should be good for PLA and PETG, but that's for nylon. It'll help, but it might not, depending on the material. So I would like to see them improve that. This needs a little more power. You need a little more amps coming in to push a little more amps out of that heater. Also, like eSun did, it needs a fan. You have to circulate the air inside of here. Otherwise, it's real hot down here, real cold up here. And if you increase the temperature down here to bring the temperature up here proper, you'll be too hot down here and you'll damage the filament down here. One of the reasons they might be limiting the temperature it can reach, the way around that is you need a fan to circulate the air. so that all the air in the unit gets to the same homogeneous temperature without overheating any one portion of the unit. This also appears to have enough power, so the addition of a fan might be enough to allow this to get to 40, 45 C, which is where you're going to want it to get to, depending on the plastic you're using. So I may try to tap in and add a little 24-volt fan, a little tiny 30mm fan, just something to circulate the air a little bit inside of here. I may try that and see what happens. On the front here, you have your display. You change your temperature here. I believe it's this button. You're also going to want to press and hold this button, and it's going to change to a display of hours. You need to change that, because otherwise this, I believe, defaults to turning off after 3 hours. You need a lot more than 3 hours. So you're going to want to max that out to the 24-hour max that it has. Once you set it to that, it should be good. I don't know if it saves it after being unplugged. I have not checked that. I'll show you the inside. It does appear to have insulation on the bottom. So you have a little bit of insulation there, and here's your heating element, but it has no insulation on the top. Well, heating element is underneath that metal plate. So an idea would be to get like a silver-lined bubble mailer kind of thing, like insulation. Looks like bubble pop insulation, and find one that fits over top of this, so that you can insulate this to trap that heat in better. Just cut away enough that you can still see the screen on the front of the unit. Cheap barbecue thermometer, ideally 2 probes, one on the bottom, one in the middle. What I do is I stick it right there. I put it through these holes, and I stick it right there in the middle of the spool so I can see what the temperature of the actual spool is. In general, pretty good. Needs a little more power maybe. Needs a fan, something to circulate the air. Needs a little more insulation. I understand why they want to make this clear. Like in the wintertime, this is not going to do nothing. In the summertime, it'll work okay. It'd be nice if they included a custom little cover that had a window for the display that would insulate this better. That would probably solve a lot of the trouble. But yeah, definitely add a fan. Otherwise, because of the restriction in temperature it can reach, you're safe. So this would be good for PLA and PETG, and it might do nylon if you leave it in there long enough. You might get some effect on nylon. What happens when filament is moist? Well, PLA cracks. PETG and nylon do snap, crackle, pop. So what will happen is your prints will be really dirty. Like the finish will be nasty. It's like all bubbly. Like, what the heck is going on? Well, listen while it's printing. If it sounds like Rice Krispies, you've got moisture. What's happening is the temperature of your nozzle is, 240, 250 if you're doing nylon, Celsius. That's close to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. That's like 450, 500 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere around there. Well, the moisture, the water in the filament is flashing to steam, and it's literally exploding. So that little you're hearing is the moisture bubbles flashing to steam, and when they explode and flash to steam, they burst the filament around them like a balloon, and that is the reason you're seeing that finish on your model. So that's it. You guys have a good day.
further. Limit. Because it's really not cooperating. I gave it a few chances, and I'm not going to take it apart just to lose warranty on it. So here's a SUNLU filament dryer box, currently printing at around 51 degrees Celsius, and so basically you can see the print quality is pretty good compared to the traditional ones if you're not using the box. Only suggestion I would like to make to customers is make sure your SUNLU filament dryer box is at a lower height than your extruder. If not, your filament might break. Also make sure it is at a straight and not at an angle. Again, that's the SUNLU filament dryer box. Thank you.
That's when it's placed above. See the separation? That's when I lowered the filament down to below and used a different mount. Just it wouldn't come out of that box steadily. It pulled on it. Look at Einstein here. See all that? When it's placed where it is, it prints like this. Much better.
Set the value that I wanted at. It's never done this.